Okay, so let's start with a super quick revision of the next chapter, that is Accounts and Records, e-way bill. Very simple chapter. Please do not leave it for your exams. Scoring chapter, simple chapter, chota chapter. Very easy. Okay, now we'll divide the chapter into two parts. First part is accounts and records. Second part is going to be your e-way bill. First reason why are we required to maintain accounts and records specifically under GST law. So they say that GST assessment basically revolves around the self-assessment. That is, first the taxpayer or the registered person will do the self-assessment, will pay the taxes, etc. And after that, to check the compliances, to check the payment that has been done by you, for that purpose, department does something called as verification. Okay, if the department has to do the verification, for that purpose, department will take help of the books, records, accounts which has been maintained by you. So for that purpose, you are required to maintain the accounts and records under the GST. Now, accounts and records, only two section number, one is section number 35 and 36 of the CGST. Okay, and the next part, and definitely some rules are going to come up there. And the second part of the chapter, that is the e-way bill, that is going to be revolving around section number 68 of the CGST Act and rule number 138 of the CGST rules. Right? These are the provisions of the accounts and records and the e-way bill. Okay, now going on to the main provision, that is section number 35, which talks about accounts and other records. First question is, who is required to maintain? So every registered person is required to maintain that accounts and records at its place of business. Okay, if a particular registered person has multiple places of business or it has got additional places of business, then in that case, for the principal place of business, it will have to maintain the accounts and records there, and for every additional place of business, it will have to maintain the accounts and records at every such additional place of business. Then we had a special point coming up for supply of tea, rubber, coffee through auction. So when it is done through auction, then there is a principal person who wants to sell it through auction. Auction is conducted by the auctioneer, and then there will be a buyer. So in this case, normally they say that suppose if you are storing tea, rubber, coffee in your warehouse, etc., then that particular warehouse or that particular place where the product is stored, that place should be declared as your additional place of business, and records relating to that should be maintained at such additional place of business only. Okay, but then they told that suppose if the principal and the auctioneer, if they want to maintain the records relating to this additional place of business at their principal place of business, because it becomes difficult to maintain in that particular warehouse, then they can do so after informing the jurisdictional proper officer in writing about that they are not maintaining it at the additional place of business, but they are maintaining it at their principal place of business. Okay, similarly, when that auctioneer is acting as my agent, okay, means I am selling it to the agent and agent is further selling it to the buyer in his own name, then can we say this will be considered as multiple supplies? So the principal as well as the auctioneer, no need to maintain the books at the additional place of business. They can maintain it at their respective principal place of business after informing the jurisdictional officer. And in such a case, if there is a supply from principal to agent and then agent to the buyer, then ITC provisions are normally applicable. That is, principal will collect it from the agent, will pay it to the government. Okay, agent, when it sells it to the buyer, it can take the ITC of the amount which was paid to the principal. Okay, that was a special provision applicable for supply of tea, rubber, coffee. Now, what all things are we required to maintain? So definitely we have to maintain the details about stock of goods. We have to maintain the details about taxes paid, input tax availed, output tax payable. Then we have to maintain the details about the quantity of goods, production or manufacture of the goods, inward supply of goods and services, outward supply of goods and services, and such other details. These are to be maintained by everyone. Okay, apart from this, there are some additional details that we are required to, maintain for different types of persons. Okay, let's first talk about a registered person. A registered person will have to maintain the details about, there were some five points there. It will have to maintain the details about goods imported, goods exported. It will have to maintain the details about all those supplies which attract tax under reverse charge mechanism, including the documents of tax invoice, bill of supply, delivery challan, debit note, credit note, payment voucher, refund vouchers, all these details needs to be maintained. Then if we have received any advance or if we have paid any advance and if we have done any adjustments, details of that is also required to be maintained. Then the name and address of the suppliers from whom we have got the goods, name and address of the persons to whom we have supplied the goods, right? And then all the details about the premises where we are storing the goods. All such details should be maintained by every registered person. And suppose if we are maintaining or if we are storing our goods at any place other than the declared place, okay, and if there are no supporting documents for that, then the proper officer will compute that output tax payable on that, and penalty, interest, that is altogether different, right? Now, there was a exception given to the composition scheme dealer. This is an important point. Exception given to the composition scheme dealer was he is also a registered person. Okay, he is also a registered person, but he need not maintain information about two things. One is stock of goods, and second information that he need not maintain is details of the tax, because in that case it is going to be a direct tax payment and no input tax credit will be available. Then similarly, if you are an agent, okay, if you are an agent, then you are required to maintain some extra information. What are those extra information? First one is that particular agent would have received some authorization from its principal to either receive the goods or to supply the goods. So copy of that authorization, copy of that instruction should be maintained by that agent. Then what value, description, value, quantity of goods received on behalf of the principal. Similarly, description of value, quantity of the goods supplied on behalf of the principal. Then the hisab kitab with the principal, the accounts which are to be furnished to the principal, and the taxes paid on such supplies, right? Then similarly, for a manufacturer, okay, every manufacturer, if he is a registered person who is a manufacturer, who is manufacturing goods, is required to maintain all the quantitative information. Okay, what are the raw material that was received by him, what quantity, value, etc. received by him, how much he has utilized, how much he has converted into finished goods, how much is kept in WIP, all those details he is required to maintain. Similarly, for a service provider, okay, every service provider is required to maintain the details of inward supplies that he has availed, the details of outward supplies that he has provided, and if he has utilized any goods for providing the services, then the details of those goods are also required to be maintained. Next point, important again, any person who is executing works contract, okay, building, labor plus material, etc. So such persons, first of all, he will maintain the details of name and address of such person from whom we have received the contract of doing this works contract. Then description, value, quantity of goods and services received for execution of works contract. Then description, value, quantity of goods or services utilized. One was received and the next one is utilized for execution of works contract. Then the details of payment received from that person who has given me the works contract. And last one is name and address of the suppliers from whom we have received the goods or services. These are the extra information which every works contract person is required to maintain. Then similarly, for custodian and clearing and forwarding agent, he is such a person who is handling the goods. Okay, so he will have to maintain the details of all the goods that he has received, then the goods that he has supplied, the goods that he has disposed of, the goods which has gone from his hands. He will have to maintain a detail of all such things. Next one, again important, owner and operator of a godown or a warehouse or of a transporter. Okay, so now every owner or operator of a warehouse, godown, cold storage, etc., these people are required to maintain the details of storage of goods, right? And similarly, every transporter, whether these people are registered or not, doesn't matter. Okay, whether registered or not, doesn't matter. They have to maintain the details of all the goods which they have received under their control and all the goods that they have supplied. Okay, example, when we talk about a owner or operator of a warehouse or godown, then if he is registered, he will have to maintain the details, what quantity of goods he has received in his godown, how much has been supplied, how much has been disposed of, and he will have to maintain the stock in such a manner that it can be identified item wise. Right? During physical verification, we are able to identify it item wise. Okay, if you are a transporter, then in such a case, you have to maintain all the details regarding the stock of goods or value of goods that you have received, and plus you also have to maintain the GST details of the consignor as well as the consignee. Okay, if these persons are unregistered, okay, both your go down warehouse owner or operator and transporter, if these persons are not registered, then they have to obtain a unique enrollment number, okay, that can be obtained in form GST ENR01 on the GST portal, and they will have to furnish all the details, right? Now, next one is how are we supposed to maintain it? So this can be maintained manually also, this can be maintained in electronic form also. If you are maintaining it manually, then it should be authenticated by signature. Okay, and if you are maintaining it electronically, it should be authenticated by digital signature. Proper backup should be kept. Okay, if you are keeping backup and if something happens, then the data should be able to be retrieved within a reasonable period of time, right? And it should be maintained in a readable format. Suppose if I want a printout or if I want a report from this particular data, it should be easily extractable, right? Suppose if you have maintained the data in electronic form, we can secure it with the help of passwords, etc. But if any GST officer comes and asks for password, you should be giving it to the other person. There should be no overwriting, there should be no erasing, there should be no manipulating with the information. Okay, if you have cut something, then it should be authenticated by a signature, right? If you are maintaining it electronically, then log of every changes, audit trail log should be maintained of all such changes. Are you clear with this? Yes, and yes, definitely. This is, first of all, whatever you are maintaining it, this is over and above the other laws, okay? Whatever books you are required to maintain under the other laws, that you have to anyway maintain. These are the extra information that you have to maintain under the GST law, and whenever any person under GST demands these information from you, you should produce it before the respective person. Now, what if you do not maintain these accounts? Then in that case, if you do not maintain it and if there are any such goods which are not accounted on that, directly the officer is going to calculate the tax payable plus section 73, 74 shall become applicable, right? And whatever are these books and records that you have maintained under section 35, this has to be retained for a period of 72 months. Okay, 72 months from the due date of filing the annual return for that financial year. Okay, for that particular financial year, there will be a due date for furnishing the annual return. From the due date of the annual return, you have to maintain it for a period of 72 months. But later, if for that particular financial year, the matter is under appeal or the matter is under revision or any GST proceedings is going on in the GST department or in the court of law, then in that case, you have to maintain it for maybe even for a period of more than 72 months. That is, it has to be maintained for a period of 1 year from the final disposal, from the date of final disposal of such appeal, revision or court proceeding or the original time period. Okay, 1 year, whenever you have got the decision from that 1 year or the original time period, whichever is later. This is the time period. This is the time period for which you are required to maintain the accounts, and this time period provision, okay, whatever we studied, this 72 months, etc., this time period provision is given under section number 36. Rest all the provisions were given under section number 35 plus the respective rules. Are you clear till here? Yes, this was all about your accounts and records. Now I am going to the second part of the chapter, which is talking about your electronic way bill or the e-way bill, which is given under section number 68 of the CGST Act and which is covered under rule number 138 of the CGST rules. Okay, now first of all, what is the meaning of e-way bill or what is the purpose of e-way bill? Okay, e-way bill is basically a document. Okay, it is a compliance mechanism which we are required to generate. Okay, which we are required to generate whenever there is a movement of goods from one place to another, and when your consignment value exceeds rupees 50,000. Okay, I am not telling interstate, nothing. Whenever there is any movement of goods from one place to another, and if the consignment value exceeds rupees 50,000, then we are required to generate an e-way bill, and that e-way bill is the evidence, okay, which is to be carried by the transporter at the time of transportation of goods from one place to another, and this is the mandatory provision. Okay, now listen, now let's get into the details of it. Now, on which website, ma'am, is it as the name suggests, can we say this is going to be an electronic document? Yes, so this will be generated on a website called as ewaybillgst.gov.in. On this website, it will be generated. Okay, now this e-way bill is to be generated. Just now I told you it will be generated whenever there is a movement of goods. Now, this movement of goods can be on account of supply also, or it can be on account of any reasons other than supply also. Okay, example, principal is sending it to the job worker. Okay, or if I am sending it to some other person, but it is not a supply. Example, I am sending it for free warranties. Then in that case also e-way bill is required if the consignment value exceeds rupees 50,000. Are you clear till here? Now, who is required to generate? Who is required to generate this e-way bill? Okay, now there are three parties in this entire part. One is the supplier, that is the consignor. Okay, next person is going to be the recipient who is ultimately going to receive it. And in between, the person who is helping to transport is going to be the transporter. Now, who is responsible? Who is responsible for generating the e-way bill? So, normally the responsibility, they say that if the supplier is a registered person, okay, if the supplier is a registered person and if he is arranging for the transport, he will generate the e-way bill part A. Okay, e-way bill is divided basically into two parts. One is part A and part B. Part B is always to be filled by the transporter. Okay, but part A will be filled by the consignor who is a registered person, and if he is arranging for the transport, he will fill the part A. Okay, but if suppose the supplier is an unregistered person, but the recipient is a registered person. Okay, if the recipient is a registered person, then in such case, e-way bill will be generated by the recipient. Okay, let's say both of them are registered person, but the transportation is arranged by the recipient. Then the recipient is going to generate the e-way bill. Okay, e-way bill will be generated, and this e-way bill part A is generated. After generating part A, we are going to give the temporary reference number to the transporter, which will be valid for a period of 15 days, and then the transporter is going to fill the part B. Okay, always the transporter is going to fill the part B, and once transporter fills the part B, then only the e-way bill is deemed to be generated. Are you understanding this? Yes. So this is what we studied. I'll tell you, e-way bill divided into two parts, part A, part B. Part B always to be filled by whom? Always to be filled by the transporter. Okay. Part A can be filled by the consignor if he is a registered person and if he is arranged for the transport. Okay. Or it can be filled by the recipient if he is a registered person and if he has arranged for the transport. Okay. And suppose I am the supplier, I am an unregistered person and the other person is a registered person, then the registered person will generate the e-way bill, right? If none of us are generating the e-way bill part A, a consignor also and consignee also, then that does not mean that e-way bill is not to be generated. Then the responsibility is going to go on the transporter. Then transporter will fill the part A also and transporter is going to fill the part B also. Ma'am, what if transporter is unregistered? If the transporter is unregistered, then he will have to apply for a unique transporter ID, 15-digit unique transporter ID called as TransIN, which he is going to use for generating the e-way bill. Are you clear with this? Yes? Okay. Then after that, okay, this 50,000 provisions we have already checked. It can be for reasons of supply. It can be for reasons other than supply also. And yes, now listen, one thing from exam point of view. When I ask you who can who can generate the e-way bill. So any person who is causing the movement of goods. Okay, I'll repeat, who can generate the e-way bill? Any person who is causing the movement of goods, such a person can generate the e-way bill. Ma'am, what do you mean by the term who is causing the movement of goods? If supplier is a registered person and if he is undertaking the transportation of goods, then he is the person causing the movement of goods, so he will generate the e-way bill. Okay, if supplier is unregistered but the recipient is a registered person, then recipient is a person who is causing movement of goods and he will generate the e-way bill. Okay, if let's say recipient is arranging for the transport. If recipient is arranging for the transport, recipient is the person causing movement of goods. So he will generate the e-way bill. Are you clear with this? If both of them are unregistered person, then transporter is the person causing movement of goods and he will be responsible for generating the e-way-bill. Okay, but e-way-bill, again, it is required only when the consignment value exceeds rupees 50,000. Ma'am, what do you mean by consignment value? Consignment value means the value as determined as per section number 15 valuation. Yes, but here for a change, it will also include the value of, it will also include the amount of taxes, CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST, etc. All these will be included. Okay, included in this. And suppose if this invoice includes value of taxable supply also and exempt supply also, then we have to exclude the value of exempt supply and only the value of taxable supply will be considered for the purpose of calculating the consignment of goods. Are you clear with this? Yes. So this was the meaning of the term called as consignment. Now let's say suppose if you are moving the goods, from one place to another for reasons other than supply, then in that case you will not be having any invoice value. Yes, but then that movement is also supposed to be authenticated by a delivery challan. So whatever is the value written in the delivery challan, that will be considered as your consignment value. Are you clear with this? Yes. Okay. Now, basic rule that we studied was whenever there is a movement of goods from one place to another and if the consignment value exceeds rupees 50,000, then we are required to generate, any person who is causing movement of goods, that person is required to generate the e-way bill. Okay, but now we have got two very good exceptions to it. This 50,000 value is not to be checked in two cases. Okay, both of the cases are interstate transport of goods. Whenever there is interstate transport of goods from principal to job worker, okay, that is reasons other than supply. Interstate transfer of goods from principal to job worker, irrespective of the value, e-way bill is mandatory. Okay, even if it is less than 50,000, e-way bill is mandatory, but only if it is interstate. Okay, and one more exception, whenever there is interstate transfer of handicraft goods by any such person who is exempted from obtaining registration under section number 24. Okay, if I am such a person who is exempted from obtaining registration under section 24, if that person is transferring handicraft goods from one state to another state, only interstate, then in that case, irrespective of the value of such handicraft goods, e-way bill is mandatory. So these are the two cases where e-way bill is mandatory in case of interstate transfer of goods, irrespective of the value. Yes, and the last different point which is coming up here is in case of bill to ship to model. Do you recollect bill to ship to model? Okay, I gave the order to you. You should be ideally sending the goods to me, but I told you please give it to C. Okay, then in that case, can we say there were two invoices that were issued? One invoice you will issue on me and one invoice I will issue directly on my customer. Even if there are two invoices, but can we say movement of goods is happening only once? You are directly sending it to my customer. So they are telling in this case only one e-way bill is required. Okay, even if two invoices are issued, this is one such exception where only one e-way bill is required. Normally, otherwise what happens? For every invoice, new e-way bill is required. But in this case, since movement of goods is happening only once, that's why only one e-way bill is sufficient. Right? Okay, next. Now, e-way bill components, which I have already told you, part A and part B. Okay, part A will be filled by such a person as causing movement of goods. It will contain all the basic information except the information of transporter. Okay, transporter information is going to go in part B. All the other information are going to come under part A. Okay, example, GST details of the consigner, consignee. Okay, date of such invoice, value of invoice, HSN, description of goods, value of goods. Then, the place from where the goods originated till the place of delivery. All those details will be written in part A. Okay, and after that, the transporter detail, that is who is transporting the goods, the GR number, goods receipt number, railway receipt number, airway bill number, etc. All these things will be written in part B. Okay, that has to be filled by the transporter. But yes, definitely part B has to be mandatorily filled by the transporter. We can even authenticate the transporter to fill the part A. We can tell him you do everything. You only make part A, you only make part B. Okay, this authentication can be given by a registered person to the transporter. Are you clear with this? Okay, now when is e-way bill actually generated? Now see, part A, let's say anyone, either the consignor or the consignee or the transporter, that person fills the part A. Okay, that person will fill the part A and will give that number, reference number to the transporter. Transporter will complete part B within a period of 15 days. Once a transporter completes part B, only after that the e-way bill is generated. Okay, only filling part A is not sufficient. You have to fill both the parts, part A as well as part B. Only then the e-way bill is deemed to be registered. Are you clear with this? If both of them are not registering, consignor, consignee, if they are not generating the e-way bill, the responsibility goes on the transporter. Are you clear with this? Acha, now there is an exception here. Just try to understand. Whenever you are transporting goods, okay, whenever you are transporting goods by railway or by airways or by water, that is by way of ship, then in that case, normally what happens, e-way bill is to be generated before the movement of goods start. Before the movement of goods start, before that the e-way bill should be generated. Okay, but here there is an exception in case of railways, air and ship. In this case, e-way bill can be generated. Okay, it will, first of all, it will not be generated by the transporter. Okay, part B will not be filled by the transporter. It will be filled either by the consignor or the consignee. Railway will not do this for you. Airlines will not do this for you. Shipping company will not do this for you. Okay, you only have to do it only in these three cases. Okay, and next exception is, it is not mandatory to issue or generate e-way bill before the commencement of movement of goods. It can be done before the commencement of movement of goods, or it can be done during the movement of the goods. Okay, and so that is one thing. Acha, but one extra point for railways. Okay, in case of railways, now see, they say that once the e-way bill is generated, normally, okay, once the e-way bill is generated, e-way bill should be the transporter should carry the e-way bill with him during transportation. But there is an exception in case of railways. Okay, in case of railways, even if railway just carry the invoice, then that is sufficient. Carrying e-way bill is not mandatory during the movement of goods. But if someone wants to collect the goods from the railways after it has reached the destination, if you want to claim the goods from the railways, then in that case you will have to show the e-way bill, and only then the railway will give you the goods. Are you clear with this? Yes. Then after that, just now I told you that e-way bill is generated only after filling part A and part B of the e-way bill. Yes, it is generated only after part A and part B of the, filling the part A and part B of the e-way bill. But there are two exceptions to it. Okay, when the distance between consignor's place and the transporter's place, if that is up to 50 kilometers, means I have sent the goods to the transporter's premises for further transportation, and this distance is up to 50 kilometers. Then in that case, even if you fill only part A, then that is sufficient. Okay, similarly, when the distance between transporter's premises to the recipient premises, if that is up to 50 kilometers, then in such case also in e-way bill, only if you fill only part A, and if you don't fill part B, then also that document will be considered as a valid e-way bill. Okay, these are the only two exceptions for not filling part B. Otherwise, in all the other cases, we are required to compulsorily fill part A as well as part B. Are you clear with this? Yes. Now listen, once your e-way bill is generated, after that an e-way bill number EBN is generated, which will be used for further tracking of movement of goods. Now, it can so happen that once your e-way bill is generated, once your movement of goods has started, after that, let's say there is a change in the conveyance. Okay, there is a change in your vehicle number, there is a change in your truck number, there is a change in the your airline, etc. Then in such a case, can there be such a situation? Maybe the truck, there is a breakdown in the truck, or there was some accident happened. So now we have to change the vehicle. Okay, but now can we say the vehicle number was already put in the part B? It was already put in part B by the transporter. Now if it is changing, are we supposed to do the changes in the part B? Yes. So there is no need to issue a new e-way bill. part A was already made, that is anyway going to remain the same, only the transporter's details are changing. So they are telling that whenever the vehicle number is changing before the second movement of goods starts, means before the new vehicle starts the movement of goods, make sure that you update the details of new vehicle number in the part B. And this part B, this can be changed any number of times. Suppose if later also we want to change the vehicle, then that can be changed. Okay, that can be changed in part B and no need to issue a new e-way bill. Similarly, can there be a possibility that some area will be traveled by road, some area will be traveled by air, some area will be traveled by ship, etc. Can there be multi-modes also? For that purpose also, one e-way bill is sufficient, but whenever the mode of transportation is changing, before it changes, it should be updated in the part B of the e-way bill, right? Acha, similarly, can there be a change altogether in the transporter also? Some area was transported by X transporter, next few kilometers will be transported by another transporter, possible. In that case, the old transporter, whenever he is handing over the goods to the new transporter for further transportation, he can assign the old e-way bill to the new transporter, and the new transporter in the part B, he will be putting the details of the new vehicle number. So whenever the mode of transport is changing or the vehicle number is changing or the transporter is changing, then in that case, no need to make a new e-way bill. The changes can be done in part B of the e-way bill. Are you clear with this? Yes. Then the next one talks about consolidated e-way bill. What do you mean by consolidated e-way bill? First of all, this provision is not mandatory. This is altogether an optional provision. Option has been given to the transporter only. Okay, that the transporter, suppose if in a vehicle or in a vessel or in an aircraft, if the transporter is carrying multiple consignments, which is having multiple e-way bills, then such transporter can go to the GST portal and it can apply for a consolidated e-way bill. Individual e-way bill is anyway mandatory. Okay, but transporter, for the purpose of his convenience, he can apply for a consolidated e-way bill which will contain the details of all the individual e-way bills that he is transporting from one place to another. Okay, but consolidated e-way bill is not having any legal validity. Okay, it is just the summary for his own use which he can apply on the GST portal, and he can get this consolidated e-way bill in form GST EWB 02. Are you clear with this? Again, I am repeating, this consolidated e-way bill is not mandatory. This is purely optional. Right? Now listen, whatever information is contained in your e-way bill, okay, you have generated, either the consignor or the consignee or the transporter has generated the e-way bill. Okay, this information will also be used for the purpose of filing of your GST returns. Can we say if any e-way bill is generated for the purpose of supply from A to B, then in that case that should be included in the sales of Mr. A. Therefore, that will be included in the GSTR1 sales of the supplier. Okay, so see, did you see how the data is being used? The data that you used for generating the e-way bill, that is getting auto-populated in your GSTR1. Yes. Now, what if you have made an e-way bill and there is some mistake in that e-way bill? Can it be edited? The mistakes in the e-way bill cannot be edited. So, ma'am, what to do? In that case, you have the option directly to cancel the e-way bill, but that cancellation can be done only within a time period of 24 hours of generation of the e-way bill, and that too only if none of the officers have already verified your e-way bill. Okay, if someone has already checked your e-way bill, maybe during transit, if someone has already checked, then in that case, even if it is within 24 hours, you cannot cancel your e-way bill. Right? Now, once an e-way bill is generated or once a consolidated e-way bill is generated, then in that case, what will be the validity of such e-way bill? Such e-way bill will be valid for a period of 1 day. Okay. Now, this validity will be divided into two parts. One is in case of normal cargoes, and second one in case of over-dimensional cargo. Okay, over-dimensional cargo or multimodal cargo or multimodal transshipment, where at least one leg of shipment is going to be done by vessel. Okay, again I'll divide it. Okay, first part is normal cargo. Second part is when the transportation is done by over-dimensional cargo or multimodal shipment where one leg will be transported by way of ship. So can we see in case of over-dimensional cargo, the speed will be less. And in case where the shipment is going to be done by ship, the speed will be definitely less. So in that case, they say that e-way bill, okay, in case of over-dimensional, other case I am talking about, over-dimensional cargo, etc., the e-way bill will be valid for a period of 1 day for every 20 kilometers. Okay, can we say the time, the distance traveled will be available, right? So for every 20 kilometers, validity is equal to 1 day. Okay, up to 20 kilometers, validity is equal to 1 day. For every 20 kilometers or part thereof, you are going to get an extra validity of 1 day more. Right? Similarly, in case of a normal cargo, they say that up to 200 kilometers, validity is equal to 1 day. And for every 200 kilometers or part thereof, you are going to get an additional validity of 1 day beyond that. Okay. Now, this 1 day plus 1 day, whatever we are calculating, this validity is from which date? Okay, this validity is going to be from a relevant date. Okay, ma'am, what do you mean by relevant date? Relevant date is the date when the e-way bill has been generated. Okay, generated, that is part B has been generated. Remember, part A plus part B both needs to be generated. Once both are filled and uploaded, only then the e-way bill is generated. That date is called as the relevant date. Okay, now let's say it is generated at 6 o'clock in the evening. Okay, then in that case, this 1 day counting will not start from 6 o'clock in that evening. We'll go to the midnight. Okay, we'll go to the midnight. And then after that, from that midnight, the counting of 1 day, 2 day, 3 day is going to start. Okay, let's say the e-way bill is generated on 31st of January at evening 6 p.m. Then we are going to take the midnight of 31st Jan and 1st Feb. From there, your validity is going to start. Are you clear till here? Yes, so for normal cargo up to 200 kilometers, 1 day validity, and then same ahead. In case of over-dimensional or where in case of multimodal, where at least one leg is going to be done by transportation by ship, then up to 20 kilometers, 1 day, and for every 20 kilometers or part thereof, you are going to get 1 day extra. That is the time period, that is the validity of the e-way bill. What is the relevance of validity of the e-way bill? That the transportation should be completed, transportation of goods should be completed within that particular validity. If it is completed late, then the transportation or the e-way bill is not valid. Yes, can there be some exceptional circumstances, natural calamity, etc., where it is not possible to complete the transportation of goods within the specified validity period? Yes, there can be a possibility. Let's say there was a war-like situation, or let's say there was floods, or let's say there was any such exceptional circumstances, etc. Then in such cases, the transporter who is carrying such goods, that person can extend the validity by applying the same on the GST portal, and the validity can be extended within a time period of 8 hours from the time of expiry. Now it is going to expire at midnight, right? So within a time period of 8 hours, the validity should be extended on the GST portal. Right? And yes, definitely has to give the reasons for such extension. Now listen, whenever e-way bill is generated either by the consignor or by the consignee or by the transporter, okay, then in that case, let's say if it is generated by the consignor or by the supplier, then it should be accepted by the recipient. Okay, or vice versa, when it is generated by the recipient, it should be accepted by the supplier, then only the e-way bill is finally generated. Okay, now they have to, when are they supposed to accept it? Okay, as soon as the details are uploaded in part A. Okay, part B was anyway done by whom? It was done by the transporter. Whenever the details are generated in part A, from that time go to the midnight. Okay, from midnight within 72 hours. Within 72 hours, the e-way bill should be accepted by the other person. Okay, either within 72 hours from the midnight of details being available under part A, or before delivery of goods, whichever is earlier. Can there be a possibility that the goods are delivered within 1 day only, within 24 hours only? Okay, so out of these two, whichever is earlier, within this specified time period, the e-way bill can be either accepted or rejected by the other party. Okay, if no action has been taken within the specified time period, then in that case, it is deemed that your e-way bill has been accepted. Okay, again I'll repeat. What is the specified time period within which it should be accepted or rejected? 72 hours from the time when the data was made available under Part A, or before the delivery of goods, whichever is earlier. And while calculating this 72 hours, etc., again that midnight provision will become applicable. Okay, next point is when the e-way bill is generated from one state to another and my vehicle is going to pass through multiple states, then in that case you are not required to generate e-way bill for multiple states. Okay, one e-way bill is common for the other state also, right? Another thing is, everyone here, e-way bill part B should compulsorily contain the vehicle number, without which your e-way bill is totally invalid. Okay, suppose if there has been multiple changes in the vehicle number, okay, the latest number which is written in the e-way bill should match with the actual vehicle number if inspected. Okay, another thing, e-way bill cannot be edited if there is any mistake. It can be cancelled, but it cannot be edited. Are you clear with this? Multiple invoices will require multiple e-way bills. Only exception was bill to ship to. There were 2 invoices, but only 1 e-way bill. Are you clear with this? Okay, then there are certain cases when e-way bill is not required to be generated at all. Okay, when there was transportation of certain category of goods, LPG was supplied to household and non-domestic exempted category of customers. Then in case of jewelry, but except for imitation jewelry. Then kerosene oil sold under public distribution system. Then postal baggage transported by Department of Post, by our post department. Then natural or cultured pearl, semi-precious, precious stones, precious metals, etc. When the currency is transported, whenever personal belongings are transported from one place to another, coral, unworked and worked coral, whenever these are transported, these are some specific category of goods given for which you do not need an e-way bill at all. Forget about the value. Yes, but remember imitation jewelry. For transportation of imitation jewelry, even though it is a jewelry, okay, e-way bill is required for that. Then when the goods are transported by non-motor conveyance, non-motor example cycle, right? Then whenever the goods are transported from port, custom port, airport, etc. to inland container depot or container freight station, which is under the control of customs, okay, or vice versa, from inland container depot to the port, airport, etc. Again, it is under the control of customs. No need to generate the e-way bill for that. Okay, then in respect of movement of goods, which is specifically notified by any state or union territory. Example, if special exemption has been given by Maharashtra state that no e-way bill is required for up to 1 lakh rupee of value, then no e-way bill will be required for transportation of goods within the state of Maharashtra. Okay, then similarly, goods which are exempted from tax, fruits, vegetables, etc. No e-way bill is required except for de-oiled cake. Okay, de-oiled cake is such a product which is exempted from tax. Okay, but still e-way bill is required for transportation of this product. Then similarly, when the goods are transported, are alcoholic liquor for human consumption, petrol, diesel, ATF, natural gas, that category, no e-way bill is required for that. When there is a supply of such goods happening which is not considered as a supply as per schedule number 3, no e-way bill is required. Okay. Then transit cargo from Nepal or Bhutan or to Nepal or Bhutan, no e-way bill is required. Empty cargoes containers are transported from one place to another, no e-way bill is required. Okay, any such goods are transported which are exempted from tax under some special notifications. Example, supply of heavy water and nuclear fuels by Department of Atomic Energy to NPCIL company, or whenever there is a supply of goods to army canteens, etc. No e-way bill is required. Or whenever there is any defense material transportation by the Ministry of Defense, secret mission, so no e-way bill is required in that case. Similarly, when the goods are being transported from the consignor's premises to such a place where the goods are going to be weighed, weight will be taken there, weighment bridge, okay, or weigh bridge, WEIGH. Okay, from my place it is going to go to the weigh bridge only for the purpose of weight. Okay, and the distance is up to 20 kilometers. Okay, or vice versa, the distance from weigh bridge to our premises is up to 20 kilometers. Then if the goods are accompanied with delivery challan, okay, since this is for other than supply purpose, it should be accompanied with a delivery challan. So if it is accompanied with delivery challan, then in that case, e-way bill is not required. Okay, and similarly, empty cylinders are being moved from one place to another, obviously for other than supply, then in that case, again, e-way bill is not required. These were your certain points for which e-way bill generation is not required. No need to check the value also, right? Then after that, the next thing that they are telling us here is, once you have generated this e-way bill, okay, any person who is carrying this conveyance, okay, any person who is driving the truck, or any person who is taking the goods in plane, or any person who is taking the goods in ship, etc., that person should carry two things compulsorily. Okay, one thing is tax invoice, or the bill of supply, or the delivery challan. That is one evidence that the person in charge of the conveyance should carry with himself. Okay, and along with that, he will have to carry the copy of the e-way bill either in physical format, or if he does not want to carry it in physical format, he can just carry the e-way bill number with him. Okay, or he can carry that e-way bill which is mapped to the RFID device which is embedded on the conveyance. Okay, so that if any particular officer wants to inspect it, then it can check it can scan it from the RFID device, and it can check the details of the goods which are contained in the conveyance, right? Then after that, the next point, sometimes it can so happen that the commissioner can notify that, okay, in so and so cases, or in so and so classes of transporters, even if they are not carrying the e-way bill, it is okay. Exemptions can be provided, that even if you are not carrying the e-way bill, that is okay, but instead of e-way bill, then you are required to carry the copy of tax invoice, or bill of supply, or the delivery challan along with you, right? Now, when the goods are being transported from one place to another, can that be verified? Can the documents, can the vessel, vehicle, etc., can it be verified? Yes, definitely. Either the commissioner or any officer authorized by this commissioner, they have the power to verify the documents that you are carrying, in case of both interstate movement of goods also as well as intrastate. But wherever they want to check it, wherever they want to check these documents, they have to make sure that RFID devices are installed so that they can scan the QR code, or they can check it by way of this RFID readers, right? And suppose if it has been checked, okay, if it has been checked in any particular place, then this particular vehicle or vessel cannot be stopped again. Okay, that is a very good point which they have given us here. And yes, one more important point is, whenever this inspection happens, okay, whenever this inspection of any goods in transit happen, then the proper officer is required to prepare two reports. Okay, first one is a summary report which it will prepare within a time period of 24 hours. Okay, 24 hours of the inspection, and final report will be prepared. Within 3 days of such inspection, and this for 3 days can be further extended by another 3 days. Are you clear with this? Yes, and I told you, once inspected, it cannot be stopped again unless there is a specific information about tax evasion. Are you clear with this? Achha, now suppose if during this inspection, etc., they come to know that there is some goods on which tax is not paid, or something is not shown as a supply, etc., then in that case, such goods can be confiscated, that can be detained, and penalty will be applicable. Only such goods which were liable for tax evasion, and not the others. Very clear with this? And yes, one more point. Suppose if the vehicle has been stopped for the purpose of checking, and if it has been stopped for more than 30 minutes, then the transporter can upload this information on the GST portal that this particular vehicle number so and so has been detained for more than 30 minutes for the purpose of checking and all those things. So that later, if the transporter wants first of all, the supplier and the recipient both will come to know about it. Okay, and secondly, whenever if the transporter wants an extension, then it will become easy for him for extending the validity of the e-way bill. Okay, next rule number 138E, very important provision. Here they say that suppose if there is a supplier, okay, there is a supplier who is the defaulting supplier. Okay, ma'am, what do you mean by defaulting supplier? That is, if there is any supplier who was registered under composition scheme and he has not paid the self-assessed tax, or he has not filed the statement for payment of self-assessed tax under GST for the last 2 quarters, for 2 consecutive quarters. Remember, composition scheme dealers were required to do the payment on quarterly basis. So he has not filed a statement for that self-assessed tax for 2 consecutive quarters. Or any person who was paying tax under regular scheme has not furnished GSTR1 for any 2 tax periods, either 2 months or 2 quarters. Okay, or any particular regular person has not filed any other returns for 2 consecutive tax periods, or any person whose registration has been suspended. Means these persons are defaulters. Either they have done the default of not filing the returns, or their registration has been suspended. If such defaulter person is a supplier, then on the supplier GST portal, the facility for generating the e-way bill will be totally blocked. That is, such a supplier, if he is a defaulter person, he cannot generate any e-way bill at all. Okay, he cannot generate any e-way bill. Means they are telling that first you rectify the default of not filing the returns, etc., and only then we will unblock your facility of generating the e-way bill. But yes, definitely the exception can be provided by the commissioner when you give sufficient reasons to the commissioner for non-compliance. Are you clear with this? Yes. And the next point which is coming up here is, yes, whenever you are not carrying the e-way bill under any of the provisions, okay, maybe you are carrying an exempt product, or maybe when you are exempted from generating the e-way bill, then in such cases, if you are not carrying the e-way bill, you still have to carry the tax invoice or the bill of supply or the delivery challan along with you, right? And the last point which is coming up here is, suppose if the supplier has supplied some goods to the recipient, okay, and the recipient is not in a position to keep the goods in his premises, so the recipient requests the transporter to keep the goods in the transporter's warehouse. So the recipient goods can be kept in the transporter's godown or warehouse, but such place should be declared as the additional place of business of such recipient. Okay, in this case, first the supplier will hand it over to the transporter. Okay, supplier's work is done when he hands it over to the transporter, and for that purpose there will be a valid e-way bill. Okay, because now the goods are going to go only till the transporters go down. Till there only your e-way bill will be valid. Later, when the recipient wants to shift the goods from the transporter's premises to the recipient premises, at that time a fresh e-way bill will be required. Are you clear with this? Yes. And the recipient, he will be having a place of business, and he will have to show the transporter's warehouse as his additional place of business. So all the details regarding the additional place of business is required to be maintained, but that can be maintained at the principal place of business of the recipient, just like we did it for the purpose of tea, rubber and coffee. Are you understanding this? For recipient, there will be 2 places. One is your place of business, and transporter's place, warehouse, will be shown as additional place of business. So we had studied that the records relating to additional place of business should be maintained there. Okay, but the recipient can still maintain it at the principal place of business after informing the jurisdictional officer. Are you clear with this? Yes, this was all about the provisions of accounts and records and e-way bill. Yes, section number 35, 36 and section number 68. And specific rule number for e-way bill to be remembered is rule number 138. I hope you are very, very clear till here.